We live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
The United States readies its response to the unprecedented attack on Saudi oil facilities as President Trump says Iran was likely to blame, fanning new fears of conflict in the Gulf region.
A passenger train derailed during the morning rush hour in Hong Kong on Tuesday, leaving 8 people injured.
Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam rejects accusations of the government and police being selective in their work after a weekend of protests saw attacks by both government supporters and pro-democracy activists.
And a new humanitarian snapshot from the UN's Office for the Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs, or OCHA, for Asia and the Pacific shows that between intensified conflict and serious disasters, thousands remained displaced in the region.
I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. The United States is preparing its response to the unprecedented attack on Saudi oil facilities as President Trump said Iran was likely to blame, fanning new fears of conflict in the Gulf region. President Trump said he was ready to help key ally Saudi Arabia after the weekend drone attacks which triggered a record leap in global oil prices, but would await a definitive determination on who was responsible. Let's listen in.
I'm not looking at options right now. We want to find definitively who did this. We're dealing with Saudi Arabia. We're dealing with the Crown Prince and so many other of your neighbors. And we're all talking about it together. We'll see what happens.
President Trump also said the United States would be talking to Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and many of the neighbors out there that they're very close friends with.
We're also talking to Europe, a lot of the countries that we're dealing with, whether it's France, Germany, etc., talking to a lot of different folks, and we're figuring out what they think. But I will tell you, that was a very large attack, and it could be met with an attack many, many times larger very easily by our country. But we're going to find out who definitively did it first.
President Trump spoke to reporters shortly after U.S. Defense Secretary Mike Esper said the U.S. military is preparing a response to the attack on the Saudi oil facilities. Asked by a reporter to clarify if he thinks that Iran is responsible for the attack, this is what the president said.
Responsible for the attack. Do you think that
I didn't say that. Why do you say that? I said that we think we know who it was, but I didn't say anybody. But certainly it would look to most like it was Iran, but I did not say it the way you said. Go ahead. We'll let you know. As soon as we find out definitively, we'll let you know, but it does look that way.
Are you Mr. President, do you want war with Iran?
Do I want war? I don't want war with anybody. I'm somebody that would like not to have war. Secretary Pompeo and others will be going over to Saudi Arabia at some point to discuss what they feel. They're going to make a statement fairly soon. But they also know something that most people don't know as to where it came from, who did it, and we'll be able to find that out, figure that out very quickly. We pretty much already know.
Now, as I said earlier, Trump was speaking to reporters shortly after U.S. Defense Secretary Mike Esper said the U.S. military is now readying a response to the attack on the facilities. After briefing President Trump in the White House, Esper singled out Iran as undermining international order without directly pinning blame on Tehran for the attack. Esper also said he and the Pentagon leadership met with President Trump in the wake of Saturday's attack, which analysts say appears to have involved drones and possibly cruise missiles launched from a nearby country. The Iran-supported Houthi rebels in Yemen claimed responsibility for the attack. But the Riyadh-led coalition fighting the Houthis said that the weapons were Iranian-made, and it remains unclear where they were launched from.
Iran Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei on Tuesday ruled out negotiations with the U.S. as tensions mount between the arch foes after Washington blamed Tehran for attacks on Saudi oil installations. The policy of maximum pressure against the Iranian nation is worthless, and all Islamic Republic of Iran officials unanimously believe there will be no negotiations with the U.S. at any level, he said, quoted on his official website. The White House said on Sunday that U.S. President Donald Trump could meet Iranian counterpart Hassan Rouhani on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York next week. Tehran and Washington have been at loggerheads since May last year, when Trump withdrew from a 2015 nuclear deal and began reimposing crippling sanctions. Iran responded by scaling back its commitments under the landmark accord, which gave it the promise of sanctions relief in return for carbs on its nuclear program. The UN General Assembly debate opens on September 24.
Meanwhile, the Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, said it's ready to repatriate some 50,000 overseas Filipino workers from areas affected by the bombing of oil plants in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, in case the condition there worsens. Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello noted that they are still assessing the possible implications on the safety and security of Filipino workers there. He added that they're monitoring developments in the area. Bello also reported that there was no Filipino casualty in Saturday's drone attack at the Abcake plant in the kingdom, affecting nearly half of the country's oil production, which is about 5% of the global daily output. The attacks were allegedly perpetrated by Houthi rebels in Yemen. The DOLE secretary added that they are in close coordination with the Department of Foreign Affairs on the possible repatriation in case the situation worsens and poses danger to our OFWs.
Attacks against oil facilities in Saudi Arabia over the weekend, claimed by rebel fighters in Yemen, are a sign that the war-torn country could be drawn into even greater conflict, the top United Nations official there told the Security Council on Monday. Special Envoy Martin Griffiths said there is no time to waste in ending 4 years of fighting between Houthi rebels and the internationally recognized government, supported by a Saudi-led coalition which has pushed the country to the brink of famine. The UN Humanitarian Affairs Coordination Office, or OCHA, estimates roughly 80% of the population, or 24 million people, require humanitarian aid.
The attack on Aramco facilities in Saudi Arabia this past Saturday morning, 14th of September, which has caused significant disruption to the kingdom's crude oil production, has consequences well beyond the region. At a minimum, this kind of action carries the risk of dragging Yemen into a regional conflagration. Because of one thing we can be certain, and that is that this extremely serious incident makes the chances of a regional conflict that much higher and of a rapprochement that much lower.
We see a persistent pattern of attacks in Yemen that kill and injure civilians or damage critical civilian infrastructure. A nationwide ceasefire, as I have long advocated, would reduce people's exposure to harm right now. All parties must uphold their obligations under international humanitarian law at all times.
The United States condemns these attacks in the strongest possible terms, standing firmly with our Saudi friends. We must all be clear-eyed about this event, a direct assault on the world energy supply. Claims of responsibility have been made, but as Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has clearly stated, there is no evidence that the attacks came from Yemen. Emerging information indicates that responsibility lies with Iran. This briefing, civilians continue to bear.
In other news, a Taliban suicide bomber killed at least 24 people near a campaign rally for Afghan President Ashraf Ghani, with the insurgents warning of more violence ahead of elections. About an hour after the attack, another blast, also claimed by the Taliban, rocked central Kabul near the U.S. Embassy, although it was not immediately clear if it claimed any lives. The explosions come after U.S. President Donald Trump last week abruptly ended talks with the Taliban, seeking a deal that would have allowed the U.S. to begin withdrawing troops from its longest war. The bomber near Ghani's rally in Parawan province, about an hour's drive north of Kabul, had been on a motorbike and had detonated his device at checkpoint leading to the event, according to Interior Minister spokesman Nasrat Rahimi. Women and children were among the casualties. Parawan Hospital Director Abdul Qasim Sangin said in a statement sent to media claiming responsibility for both blasts. Taliban spokesman Sabiullah Mujahid said the attack near Ghani's rally was deliberately aimed at disrupting the September 28 elections.
A passenger train derailed during the morning rush hour in Hong Kong on Tuesday, leaving 8 people injured, authorities said. Images from the scene showed 3 carriages off the tracks and zigzagged across the rails near Hung Hom Station in Kowloon, a busy interchange that provides services to mainland China. Passengers had to leave the train through a broken door and cross tracks on the East Rail line to make their way to safety. 500 passengers had been evacuated from the train. 8 passengers reported injuries when they arrived at the concourse of the station, according to authorities. The cause of the derailment was still under investigation, but there was no immediate suggestion of foul play after previous attacks by pro-democracy protesters on the city's mass transit system. Hong Kong is in its 4th month of political unrest, which has seen millions of protesters hit the streets in the biggest challenge to Chinese rule since the city's handover from Britain in 1997. MTR has been targeted by protesters since the company refused to hand over CCTV footage of police last month, beating demonstrators and passengers on a subway train.
Meanwhile, Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam rejected accusations of the government and police being selective in their work after a weekend of protests saw attacks by both government supporters and pro-democracy activists. Take a look.
I have to make it absolutely clear that the government condemns all forms of violence. Our condemnation is not politically driven. In the same way, police arrest and subsequent prosecution by the Department of Justice in an impartial manner are not politically driven. We act in strict accordance with the law based on the facts. So nobody should speculate or allege either my government or the police for being selective in the work that we are doing.
Hong Kong police on Monday denied accusations their officers showed comparative lenience towards gangs of pro-Beijing men who attacked pro-democracy supporters during a weekend marked by multiple bloody street brawls. The once stable international hub has been convulsed by weeks of huge, sometimes violent rallies calling for greater democratic freedoms and police accountability. The movement is the biggest challenge to China's rule since the city was handed back by Britain in 1997 and shows no sign of ending, with city leaders and Beijing taking a hard line. On Sunday, riot police fired tear gas and water cannon at hardcore pro-democracy protesters who were hurling rocks and petrol bombs, capping a 15th consecutive weekend of huge peaceful rallies followed by clashes. But there was also an uptick in bloody street fights, with people on both sides of the political divide finding themselves beaten.
Hundreds of flights have been affected by thick haze caused by forest fires in Indonesia. Thousands of firefighters are struggling to contain smog-belching blazes raging across rainforests and farmland in Indonesia, one of the front lines against fires blamed for aggravating global warming. The culprit is usually illegal fires set to clear land for farming on Sumatra and Borneo Islands. The situation this year has been worsened by drier weather in Indonesia, with air pollution drifting over to neighboring Malaysia and Singapore and stoking diplomatic tensions.
Semua penerbangan kemarin dari pagi sampai malam itu di-cancel semua karena masalah cuaca itu.
Siap, Bang sendiri berapa malam di sini?
Satu malam sih bermalam di sini di bandara.
Drought in New South Wales and Australia continues, affecting farmers and their industry. Here's Emmy Capilita-Roja for an update.
We are bringing you the latest updates on the drought conditions in Australia. Several areas in Australia are experiencing prolonged droughts since early this year, particularly in the state of New South Wales. According to the latest media release by the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries, or DPI, not much rainfall has been experienced last August. Thereby, dry conditions are also being felt up to this month, September. These has resulted to farm and produce conditions struggling up to this point. Currently, 95% of New South Wales remains in one of the three categories of drought. According to Dr. Anthony Clark, leader of climate applications from the state's Department of Primary Industries, drought has been ongoing for 24 months or 2 years now, or even more in many parts of New South Wales. The impacts include failed cropping seasons, low water availability, and stock feed deficits. In the weather report by the Bureau of Meteorology, or BOM, their forecast states that there is a 30% or lower chance for an abundant rainfall in New South Wales. Such conditions are not helpful, and that these will also aggravate the bushfire conditions in other areas. To address these worsening drought conditions, the Department of Primary Industries launched a state-of-the-art emergency command vehicle bringing frontline assistance to regional communities. The staff from New South Wales Rural Assistance Authority, or RAA, and rural resilience teams are involved in this very important initiative. The launch of the vehicle reinforces the Government of New South Wales' responsiveness to protect the very valuable $17.5 billion primary industry sector, communities, and environment. The authorities are advising the affected communities to continue to visit the website droughthub.nsw.gov.au for advisories or assistance. They may also contact the Rural Resilience Team, financial counselors, or local land services representatives for other concerns. Reporting for Eagle News International, this is Emmy Capilita-Roja, and I am one with 25.
A new humanitarian snapshot from UN's Office for the Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs, or OCHA, for Asia and the Pacific shows that between intensified conflict and serious disasters, thousands remain displaced in the region. At least 40,000 Lao people and 24,000 in northern Thailand were counted displaced in the last week, with 32 people reportedly killed, all due to severe flooding caused by two major tropical storms, Podul and Kajiki. Heavy rains in Bangladesh have flooded Rohingya refugee camps in Cox's Bazar, affecting some 28,000 people, while in the Philippines, moderate to heavy rains brought by Tropical Depression Marilyn prompted evacuations as high tides damaged homes and caused river overflows. Meanwhile, in Myanmar, a flare-up in conflict between the country's military and Tan Ang National Liberation Army a few days ago displaced more than 1,200 people, mostly elderly and children, in just 3 days.
And we head on to Spain, where our EBC correspondent Julius Ala reports on the recent floodings in the southeastern part of the country. Julius?
Torrential rains hit southeastern Spain overnight, which results major flooding in the Valencia region and closing schools in the move, affecting 250,000 students. They caused chaos on the roads, cutting public transport and prompting the Clariano River to burst its banks, flooding homes and causing the evacuation of surrounding areas, the emergency services said. Footage shared by the local Avamet Weather Service showed cars being swept away in fast-flowing water in Moxent and torrents of water engulfing the nearby town of Ontinyent, which borders the Clariano, and saw its heaviest rainfall since records began in 1917, the agency said. With the region on red alert, regional authorities said they had ordered the closure of schools in 84 municipalities, affecting more than 255,000 pupils. Torrential rain and high winds were continuing to batter southern Valencia and northern Alicante and would likely continue into Friday, the National IMET Weather Service said. Reporting from Madrid, Spain, I am Mark Julius Saala for Eagle News.
Here's some good news. At the current momentum, scientists predict the planet's protective shield of gas or ozone layer will be completely healed as far as some regions of the planet are concerned by the 2030s, the UN's Environmental Agency, or UNEP, has revealed. The phase-out of controlled uses of ozone-depleting substances has not only helped replenish the protective layer for future generations, but is also helping guard human health by filtering out harmful rays, said UNEP, shared in a statement. The recognition of this success comes on World Ozone Day, marked 16th of September. This year celebrates 32 years and healing, a commemoration of the international commitment to protect the ozone layer and the climate under the historic Montreal Protocol, which has led to the phase-out of 99% of ozone-depleting chemicals in refrigerators, air conditioners, and other consumer products. We can celebrate success, UNEP said, but we must all push to keep hold of these gains, in particular by remaining vigilant and tackling any illegal sources of ozone-depleting substances as they arise.
Eagle News will be right back. Stay tuned.
Tungkulin ng MTRC.
Tongo, your EBC Las Vegas correspondent, reminding you that we should view every day as a new day. We should not let the troubles of the past hinder us in moving forward in life. And don't forget to watch Digital Nest on Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. only on Net 25. Again, I am Nicole Tongo and I am one with 25.
South Korea reported its first cases of African swine fever, becoming the latest country hit by the disease that has killed pigs from China to North Korea, pushing up pork prices worldwide. 5 pigs found dead at a farm in Paju, a city near the inter-Korean border, were confirmed to have been infected with the virus, an official with Seoul's Agriculture Ministry said. Seoul's Agriculture Minister Kim Yoon-soo said 3,950 pigs from 3 farms in Paju were to be culled. The country has raised its animal disease alert to the highest level, and a nationwide 48-hour ban on the movement of pigs was also issued. The virus isn't harmful to humans, but it causes hemorrhagic fever in pigs that is almost always fatal. There's no antidote or vaccine, and the only known way to prevent the disease from spreading is a mass cull of affected livestock. Although this was the first confirmed outbreak of African swine fever in the south, the country has battled a number of animal diseases in the past. In 2014, outbreaks of avian flu in poultry farms resulted in the culling of more than 500,000 birds. In 2011, a 2011 outbreak, meanwhile, of foot and mouth disease resulted in the culling of nearly 3.5 million cattle, pigs, and other animals.
Israel voted in its second election in 5 months Tuesday that will decide whether to extend Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's term as the country's longest-serving prime minister despite corruption allegations against him. Netanyahu voted in Jerusalem alongside his wife Sarah and said he expected a close election, calling on Israelis to turn out in large numbers. Netanyahu suffered one of the biggest defeats of his political career following the April vote. His Likud, along with its right wing and religious allies, won a majority, leading Israeli President Reuven Rivlin to task the premier with forming a new government. But following weeks of discussions, Netanyahu failed, leading him to opt for an unprecedented second election rather than risk having Rivlin choose someone else. A danger for Netanyahu extends beyond remaining prime minister, a post he has held for a total of more than 13 years. If he wins, many believe he will seek to have Parliament grant him immunity from prosecution while facing the possibility of a corruption indictment in the weeks ahead. The stakes could not be much higher for the 69-year-old right-wing leader who, as in April polls, faces a strong challenge from ex-military chief Benny Gantz and his centrist Blue and White Alliance. Gantz voted in his hometown for Rosh Hayin near Tel Aviv and called on the country to reject corruption and extremism. "We want hope. We are voting today for change," Gantz said after voting with his wife Revital. Gantz has campaigned by presenting himself as an honorable alternative. He has repeatedly spoken of Netanyahu's willingness to form a coalition with far-right parties that could help him secure immunity. Gantz says his alliance, which includes 3 former armed forces chiefs of staff, wants a unity government that the vast majority of Israelis would support.
To other news now, 15 people, including children, were killed in the southern Philippines when the flatbed truck they were riding in plummeted into a ravine, according to police. The vehicle was bringing about 30 people home from a trip to the beach when the driver lost control near the town of Tibuli in the latest deadly crash on the nation's dangerous roads. Based on eyewitness accounts, the truck lost its brakes. We will conduct further investigations on the actual cause, Tibuli Town Police investigator George Tabayan said. The dead included children aged between 1 to 6 years old, with at least 11 other people rushed to hospital due to their injuries. The group had come from a swimming party at a beach in neighboring town and were on their way home when the accident occurred. All right, we'll be back with more news right after this break. Stay tuned.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Open for Business, from vision to action.
Watch your favorite Net25 shows on OSN Channel 725, same day as the Philippines.
Watch your favorite Net25 shows live and on demand anytime, anywhere,
on any mobile device on OSN Play.
Carrie Lam, senior market analyst at Owanda Trading Group in London, reacts to the surge in oil prices following attacks on Saudi oil infrastructures, saying the Saudis will now have to work very hard to prove that their supplies are secure. Houthi rebels backed by Iran, who have been locked in battle with the Saudi-backed coalition for years, claim responsibility for the attacks on Aramco facilities. The attacks shut down about half of Saudi production, or some 5% of global production.
We have traders trying to assess what the actual implications of these attacks will be. Just to put into perspective, they think around 5.7 million barrels a day of Saudi oil production has been affected. To put into perspective again, global oil production is around 100 million barrels a day. So this is around 5% of the global supply, which is obviously quite considerable. Donald Trump has authorized the release of special oil reserves, which they have to try and plug some of the gap. And Saudi Arabia thinks that around a third of its lost output will actually be recovered by the end of today. So it's not necessarily the end of the world, but it's not just this particular little thing that's actually caused the markets to destabilize in the way that they have. It's the prospect that if we've seen this drone attack on this occasion with 10 drones attacking this facility, how many more could we see? How much more lost output could happen in the future? So it's difficult to actually determine right now what a fair price for oil is, and that's why when you see the market open this morning, you do see a strong knee-jerk reaction where Brent crude rises 20% and then falls another 10% during the intraday moves, and I'm sure we'll see plenty more moves as the hours and days pass, because again people are trying to re-grapple with where oil prices should be. They're going to now have to work very hard to prove to everyone that their supplies are very secure, and we have to remember this isn't just a case of Saudi Arabian oil being part of the global supply. From purely a Saudi Arabia perspective, their major oil firm Saudi Aramco wants to have an IPO over the next 12 to 24 months, and if people are worried about the risk to their facilities and the lack of security at their facilities, which means we could see outages like this, then that significantly devalues the company and really puts at risk their IPO prospects. So the airliners are seen as some of the biggest losers in terms of companies, because obviously they're very sensitive to changes in oil prices. The big winners are obviously your major oil producers. Again, the ones that obviously haven't had their supplies disrupted. So we could see that Russia, for example, the countries like this where you're seeing major oil supplies all of a sudden become a lot more valuable because of the movements that we've seen in the price of a barrel of oil.
Almost 50,000 U.S. auto workers went on strike in a pay dispute with General Motors, the largest industrial action to hit the car maker in more than a decade. Take a look.
For as long as it takes. As long as it takes. We've been told to prepare a year, maybe more ago. Just a possibility we could go out on strike. Nobody really knew what was going to happen, but we've all been told and we've all prepared the best we can do. And as long as it takes to get a fair contract, that's what we're going to do. We'll stay out that long.
You know, nobody wants to be on strike. But, you know, we're in a bad situation right now because the corporation is making a whole lot of money, you know, and we just asking for our fair share. We want to be able to take care of our families, you know, go on vacations, you know, get our kids' school clothes, you know. Just want to deal decent living wage. Took a lot of sacrifices, you know. Now the corporation is making billions and billions of dollars, you know, so just want our fair share. And we definitely need job security, so we have to stand up.
Better job security, like we're a plant that's supposed to be closing. I don't want this plant to close. I want to stay here. I love this plant. It's my home plant, and I want to just continue to work. And not have to be forced to go work somewhere else in some other state or somewhere.
More than 46,000 workers from 31 plants opted to walk out after talks between the company and the United Auto Workers Union hit an impasse as they tried to negotiate a replacement agreement when the manufacturer's 4-year contract with workers expired. GM shares were down 3% according to CNBC News, which said the strike could cost the car maker as much as $90 million a day. GM announced last November it was effectively shutting 5 plants in North America, including facilities in Michigan and Ohio that were unallocated for production. Protecting jobs and saving those plants have been key issues in the negotiations. In its response to the strike, GM's management revealed that its offer included a promise of $7 billion in investments that would save or protect 5,400 union jobs and address the issue of the 2 unallocated plants. It also promised that a new all-electric truck would be built in a U.S. plant. Adding to the friction is a federal corruption probe of the union leadership, which resulted in an FBI search last month of the home of UAW President Gary Jones.
Former Prime Minister David Cameron, who quit after calling Britain's EU membership referendum in 2016, said Boris Johnson had told him he was sure Brexit would be crushed like a toad. Cameron has broken a long spell of silence that followed his resignation to promote a tell-all book about who said what as Britain approached the historic vote. He told ITV in an interview aired Monday that Johnson, now Prime Minister, never truly believed in the Brexit cause.
He thought that the Brexit vote would be lost, but he didn't want to give up the chance of being on the romantic, patriotic, nationalistic side of Brexit. You know, the minutes before he goes out to explain why he's going to be on the side of Brexit, he sent me a text saying Brexit will be crushed like a toad under the harrow.
The Brexit side ended up winning 52-48%. Johnson turned into a figurehead of the Brexit battle after finally deciding which side he wanted to support. His rhetoric contrasted with the socially liberal and pro-trade image projected while serving 2 terms as London mayor. He now promises to take Britain out on October 31, even if he fails to strike a new negotiated agreement with Brussels. Numerous accounts of that era suggested Johnson wavered about which side to support.
Never argued for it before, and so why argue for it when there's a better deal on offer? And as I put to him, there will be another treaty, another renegotiation. You might well be the Prime Minister at the time when that comes about, and you can get an even better deal for Britain.
Brussels and London had been involved in protracted negotiations about the terms of Britain's future membership. Brexit supporters argued that Britain needed to wrest back control of its borders and negotiate its own trade deals. Opponents said Britain's position was much stronger as a member of the single European trading bloc. Former British Prime Minister David Cameron says he's sorry about the state the country's got into and that he feels some responsibility for that in an exclusive interview with ITV News.
If you're asking me, Do I have regrets? Yes. Am I sorry about the state the country's got into? Yes. Do I feel I have some responsibility for that? Yes. It was my referendum, my campaign, my decision to try and renegotiate. And I accept all of those things. And people, including those watching this programme, will have to decide how much blame to put on me. I accept, and I can't put it more bluntly than this, I accept that that attempt failed.
I think the current Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, is right.
He also criticizes his successor, Boris Johnson, saying he doesn't think he was right to suspend Parliament or remove the whip from 21 Conservative MPs.
I think the current Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, was right to suspend Parliament.
I don't think, we'll wait for what the courts say, I don't think to me it was illegal. It looked to me, from the outside, like rather sharp practice of trying to restrict the debate. And I thought it was actually, from his point of view, probably counterproductive. In the end, we have to work through Parliament. And you can't deny the arithmetic of Parliament and the majorities there are in Parliament. I obviously disagree with the idea of taking away the whip from 21 hard-working, loyal Conservatives. I think that was a bad decision. If it isn't reversed, it will be, I think, a disastrous decision. I hope that Boris will get a deal in Brussels. He will come back, try and bring Parliament together to back that deal. I don't see why those 21 people shouldn't be restored to the Conservative whip. If they're not, I really worry about what could happen.
I think the current Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, was right to suspend Parliament.
I don't think.
In other business news, the European Parliament on Tuesday approved outgoing IMF chief Christine Lagarde as the next boss of the European Central Bank, which last week announced massive stimulus for the sluggish Eurozone despite divisions among its governors. Lagarde, who was absent for the vote, won backing from 394 MEPs with 206 voting against and 49 abstaining in a secret ballot. Some criticized her not turning up. The Parliament's green light is just a recommendation. The final decision on her appointment is up to EU leaders in a mid-October summit. She's expected to easily clinch that confirmation as the leaders put her forward for the ECB post back in July. Lagarde, a former French economy minister and head of the International Monetary Fund for the past 8 years, is expected to largely follow the course set by departing ECB President Mario Draghi. Draghi was hailed 7 years ago for saving the Eurozone from debilitating crisis by vowing the ECB is ready to do whatever it takes. Draghi had underlined 3 challenges now facing the ECB and its goal of price stability: a slowing Eurozone economy, looming trade protectionism and Brexit, and the bank's degrading economic forecasts.
Das Ergebnis ist 394. Ja, 206.
Eagle News International will be right back. Stay tuned.
I am here at Gastown, which is a National Historic Site in Vancouver, British Columbia. Located in Vancouver's oldest neighborhood is the steam-powered clock, which is Gastown's most famous landmark. Make sure to tune in to Digital Nest every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. I am Lou Aquino, EBC correspondent, and I am 1 with 25.
Obstacle course races may sound intimidating to some, but let's find out what motivates the athletes who are into these competitions. Michael Hudson and Frendel Fejeran are at the scene. Watch this.
Here in Washington State, we're always looking for new and fun ways to enjoy the outdoors. We found one activity that you may remember doing as a child: obstacle course races. Now, the concept is still the same, but a lot more challenging than what you remember. These OCRs have been popping up all across the country, Obstacle course racing is a sport where participants traverse different obstacles and complete various physical tasks to finish a race. For our first venture into this, we decided to do the Spartan Run. At the start, you'll see groups of friends and teams as well as individuals all eager to test their strengths.
This is my first time. I'm actually pretty excited. Yeah.
In the beginning, my knees were shaking, my hands were shaking, but just knowing that my son's here, my friends, and everybody's so supportive.
And some not so eager.
I didn't want to do it actually. My friend goes, "Oh, you can do it, Zara," and I'm like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard is it? He said a 7, and I said, "Okay, sign me up." And then I started watching videos of what did I get myself into.
But once the race started, there's no turning back. This course consists of various obstacles such as monkey bars, Hercules hoists, javelin throws, as well as many other obstructions to test your might and resolve. And you're in the mud a lot. A lot. While slugging through the course is grueling, straining, and goofy,
You know, it's just for fun. You know, you have these regular racers, regular competitors. I don't know, I just thought it'd be uplifting, just okay. You see a hot dog running down the course.
you can't doubt the fun and accomplishments you get out there, as well as strengthening friendships and making new ones as well.
You get people cheering you on the other side and they're just waiting for you, and all of them are super excited for you to finish, so it just feels that much more awesome when you're done. I think if you stick with your comfort zone, you know, you never really see what you're made of, and then, you know, when you meet new people and they inspire you, it's that much more rewarding.
There was a few people that came the second round that, you know, because I was a little behind, and they were actually pushing me, and they're like, "You could do it just one step at a time." And it was really nice because once I got to the end and I got my medal, I found them again, and they're like, "Great job, you did so great," and then they're like, "You made it happen." So it's really nice to know that even though it may not be people that you know, it's actually, these people are even motivated to motivate you.
And I just feel like this, with all these people, you know, being with my dad, it's a whole new experience, and it was fun.
No, just going through the course, we were able to see and meet so many different people from different walks of life, different physical capabilities, able to just conquer the many obstacles. And just like our friends that we saw in the interviews earlier, just inspiring, Mike. Like, I'm even motivated to do the next run in April.
Oh, definitely.
I'm going to conquer tomorrow and the other days to come and really push my boundaries.
Yeah.
How about you?
I'm super glad I did this. As you guys can see in the footage, a lot of the obstacles were really tough, but at the end of the day, it's about having the mental toughness, and I think we were able to overcome that today.
Indeed. That's it, guys, for now. I'm Frenzel Faharan.
And I'm Michael Hudson.
And we are one with 25.
Let's head on now to the United Kingdom, where Arabelle Celestino reports about the recent Unity Games held there.
Sporting event of Iglesia Ni Cristo members. The Unity Games event encourages teamwork, sportsmanship, and encourages family to be more active in sports. Organized by the Christian Family Organization of the UK, this annual event allows members from all around the United Kingdom to compete in friendly competition, from team sports such as basketball and volleyball, kids football and badminton doubles, to track and field team and single events. The parade allows all teams to show their representatives for each of the areas. You can distinguish them by their different colors. Some teams are representing London, Midlands, the North, all ready to compete for the gold of the UK's Unity Games. Category area winners from each UK region made their way to the finals along with their family and support. But it's not all about winning. It's making sure everyone becomes active in sport and active in life. Reporting from the UK Unity Games, I'm Arabelle Celestino for ABC United Kingdom, and I am 1 with 25.
Thank you, Arabelle. Rachel Kilantang takes us to the Saatchi Gallery from Selfie to Self-Expression Exhibit. Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel from Digital Nest, EBC London Bureau, and I am here at the world-famous Saatchi Galleries for the Selfie to Self-Expression Exhibition. So let's check out those selfies.
Thousands of unique video diaries gathered from the internet comprise this large-scale audiovisual installation. This is a reflection of the fundamental human desire to be heard. I could only pick up pieces of conversation. Hearing thousands of voices at the same time was overwhelming, but the experience was surreal. This green room shows us self-portraits created by brushstrokes of artists that go as far back as the 17th century. Displayed in digital screens, we had the option to like or heart the images that appealed to us most.
Luckily, these guys' profiles are open to the public, but they don't know that I'm browsing, so I'm trying to be careful not to double tap it. Juan Pablo Echeverri. Juan Pablo Echeverri. Juan Pablo Echeverri.
$928 faux fur pom-poms make up this pom-pom mirror. Participant silhouettes are built using computer vision controlled by hundreds of motors. Perhaps a representation of the interaction, fun filters you can have with selfies these days. The exhibition concludes with a critical stance on selfies with an installation of 12 surveillance cameras. Apparently, a selfie is not an option, rather it is obligatory in today's controlling society. You may not realize to what depth you are giving away your identity voluntarily. We have met the masters of selfies who've taken a trip down history lane with artists of the self-portrait and learned from some of the best examples of a selfie. The selfie exhibition has truly been the definition of a selfie, perhaps not so much self-expression, but certainly a display of your ideal world and how you want people to see you.
The Selfie to Self-Expression Exhibition at Saatchi Galleries has been an impressive collaboration of art, photography and smartphone. I am Rachel from Digital Nest, EBC London Bureau, and I am 1 with 25.
The best in Japanese animation, cosplay and more at this year's AutoFest and Calgary's annual anime festival. Kat Joy is at the scene.
From its humble beginnings as a dedicated otaku club at the University of Calgary 2 decades ago, AutoFest has evolved into a major festival event in Calgary. The 3-day event draws anime fans from the region and showcases the best in Japanese animation. But it's more than just viewing anime, although there are plenty of screenings from the classics to new genres. Those passing through the turnstiles also have a chance to sample Japanese pop culture. There are musical concerts, there is improv and live performances. Those with a competitive edge can indulge in video gaming and competitions. There's cosplay for people into role-playing, and you can shop. But what do you buy at AutoFest? Vendors hawked anime-related items, cosplay, and much more. Still not enough? The festival featured autograph signings and meet and greets with special guests including James Landino, Rusty Meeks, and Wendy Lee. At AutoFest in Calgary, I'm Kat Joy for Eagle News. I'm 1 with 25.
Thanks, Kat.
Thanks, Kat. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards on Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles, and we're one with 25.